The world of our ancestors was not defined by luxury, not even by certainty. It was a constant battle between hunger and survival. Long before farms and supermarkets, before bread, rice and sugar became everyday staples, early humans were forced into a raw relationship with nature itself. Their menu was not crafted for taste, it was dictated by desperation. Sometimes it was roots torn from dry soil, bitter leaves that scorched the tongue, marrow sucked from cracked bones, and occasionally, if luck permitted, the tender flesh of a freshly hunted animal. But here's the question no textbook has ever truly answered. What did early humans really eat to stay alive, day after day, across unforgiving landscapes? This story is not what you think it is. It's darker, grittier, and more revealing than the polished myths we've been told. Some of the foods they relied on would shock you. Some would disgust you, and a few might even surprise you as delicacies you still enjoy today. But let's not reveal everything at once. Because hidden inside this story are secrets about survival instincts, choices made on the edge of starvation, and diets that shaped the very course of human evolution. What you're about to hear is not just history, it's the menu of life itself. And one shocking detail, one food source so primal, is something I'll only reveal a little later. So stay tuned. The earliest chapters of human survival were not written on stone tablets or painted in caves. They were carved into bone, muscle, and hunger itself across millions of years of struggle in landscapes where the line between life and death was as thin as a blade of grass. To understand what early humans really ate, we must peel back the romantic myths that history books often dress them in. The noble hunter with his spear, the triumphant master of fire, the wise gatherer plucking ripe fruits from the earth. The truth was far more brutal. In the dawn of our story, food was not a right. It was a fleeting chance, a prize won by cunning, endurance, and often by scavenging what stronger predators left behind. Early humans walked the scorching African savannas, parched by unforgiving suns and stalked by lions, hyenas, and saber-toothed cats. And yet, in those same plains, they found their sustenance not by conquest, but by waiting, lurking and daring to approach the remains of a carcass, abandoned by a beast more powerful than themselves. Before the age of organized hunting, before fire was tamed into a weapon of cooking and warmth, survival meant kneeling beside half-rotten flesh, cracking femurs with crude stone tools to extract marrow thick with life-giving fat, licking fingers sticky with blood and grease while vultures circled overhead waiting for their turn. And yet, here lies a secret rarely acknowledged. The diet of our ancestors was not centered on meat in those fragile beginnings. Yes, flesh mattered, but it was only a slice of a larger, unpredictable banquet offered by the wild. Their real day-to-day menu was scattered across roots that hid underground, tubers so bitter that only the desperate could chew them, seeds hard as stone but softened by persistence, leaves torn from shrubs, berries sour enough to twist the tongue, and the relentless hunt for insects that buzzed, wriggled, and crawled. Ants crushed between teeth, released sharp flavors of acid. Termites dug from mounds delivered quiet bursts of protein. Caterpillars and beetles, slimy yet filling, became tiny bridges between hunger and survival. But here is the twist I won't reveal in full just yet. One of the most reliable food sources for early humans, something that may have carried them through droughts and famines, was not the glamorous kill of a giant animal, nor the juicy sweetness of fruit, but something far humbler, something most of us would recoil from today. Hold on to that thought, because I will disclose it soon, but not now. Let us first step further into the untold extremes of their hunger. Early humans, without tools sharp enough to cut cleanly, broke stones against stones until shards sharp as glass appeared, slicing open carcasses faster than rival scavengers. Their hands grew blistered, their bones calloused. But in that act of striking flint against rock lay the first sparks of technology. Hunger was not just shaping their bodies, it was shaping their minds. And while the flesh of animals offered protein, it spoiled quickly, rotted in the sun, and drew predators close. This forced our ancestors to widen their search, to learn the secrets of plants, of underground bulbs, of leaves that healed as well as nourished. Some of those plants poisoned, some healed, some sustained, and through painful trial and error, humans learned to distinguish the difference. Yet I cannot tell you all of those discoveries right now, because there is one plant in particular, one root that may have been the backbone of early survival, and I will save that revelation for later. For now, understand this. Their meals were a gamble, and every bite was a test. In the shadows of predators, early humans learned to raid beehives, enduring dozens of stings to taste the golden sweetness of honey, the only concentrated sugar they knew, a brief ecstasy of energy that could last for miles. They learned to smash nuts between stones until oil dripped from their hands, precious fuel for exhausted muscles. They tore bark from trees, not for taste but for minerals hidden in fibers. They ate clay from riverbanks to neutralize toxins swallowed by mistake. Even dirt itself, bitter and gritty, could sometimes mean life. This was not cuisine, it was survival stripped bare. And yet here comes the haunting thought. In this endless trial, desperation was not their weakness, it was their teacher. Hunger forced innovation, forced risk, forced exploration. And it was in these dangerous experiments with food that early humans began to separate themselves from every other animal. Because while beasts eat what instinct tells them, humans learn to test, to fail, to adapt, to remember, to pass knowledge from one generation to another. That is why today we sit at tables overflowing with choices, while lions still hunt the same prey and monkeys still eat the same fruits. But before we rush too far into the victory of innovation, let us not forget, this was still an age of shadows, of stomachs gnawing empty for days, of hands trembling with weakness, of eyes scanning horizons for the next chance to feed. This is the true story of the wild feast, the grim, relentless, unforgiving struggle that shaped us into who we are. And buried within it, waiting to be unveiled, is the shocking detail of the food that may have mattered most, the food that almost no one today would ever expect. Stay with me, because that revelation is coming, and when you hear it, you will never look at human survival the same way again. If Chapter 1 was the story of desperation, of roots and insects and marrow sucked from scavenged bones, then Chapter 2 is where the world begins to shift, where early humans cross a threshold that no other animal had ever dared to cross, the mastery of fire, and with it, the transformation of food, flesh, and survival itself. Fire was not simply warmth against the cold night. It was not only light in the suffocating darkness. It was a revolution in the very biology of the human body. For countless millennia, raw meat and raw plants kept our ancestors alive, but they also bound them to limits, forcing stomachs and jaws to work endlessly, straining digestion, robbing energy. Then came the flames. Scholars debate whether fire was first stolen from lightning strikes, preserved in smoldering branches, or discovered when friction and sparks birthed something miraculous. But what cannot be debated is the irreversible change it unleashed. Cooked food, so simple, so obvious to us now, was nothing short of a superpower then. Flesh that was once tough became tender, roots that were once toxic became edible, grains that were once useless became fuel. Every spark extended life, every ember stretched survival. But here's where the suspense deepens. Fire didn't just change the stomach, it changed the brain. With cooking came more calories, more efficient energy, and over generations the human brain swelled, consuming nearly a quarter of the body's energy demands. That leap was not fueled by raw berries or insects alone. It was fueled by roasted flesh, by smoked marrow, by charred tubers dug from ash. Yet the story is not as clean as it sounds, because with fire came new dangers. The glow of flames at night drew predators. The smell of roasting meat attracted rivals, and the competition for fire itself was as fierce as the hunt for food. Some tribes guarded their embers like treasure, carrying them across miles, never letting the flame die, because to lose it meant returning to the desperate scavenging of the past. And here lies a mystery I won't unravel fully just yet. There is evidence that fire not only shaped what humans ate, but how they thought, how they bonded, how they dreamed. Around firelight, humans shared not just meals, but stories, alliances, rituals, the beginnings of culture itself. But we'll hold that revelation for later. For now, let's stay with food. Fire turned fat into dripping liquid gold, sizzling on stones, its aroma irresistible. It turned honeycomb into caramelized bursts of sweetness. It turned bitter roots into soft, smoky staples. And with every roasted bite, humans grew stronger, faster, sharper. Yet this was not the age of abundance. It was still the age of hunger. Even with fire, hunts often failed, seasons still stripped, landscapes bare. Droughts killed plants, predators stole kills. Insects were still eaten, bark still chewed, clay still swallowed. But now, when fire met those same foods, they transformed. Termites roasted in embers became crunchy, smoky snacks of pure protein. Seeds roasted on stones cracked open with ease. Tubers baked underground with hot ash lost their poison and became filling. This was not cuisine. It was survival enhanced by genius. But let me tease you with something darker. Fire did not only cook animals, it sometimes consumed humans themselves, and evidence whispers of rituals and acts so primal, so disturbing that I will not disclose them here, not yet. Instead, let us remember this. Fire was both salvation and danger, both tool and temptation. It gave humans dominance, but it also demanded constant vigilance. A single storm could snuff it out, leaving tribes helpless. A single predator drawn by its glow could end the fragile illusion of safety. And yet, through this fragile, flickering force, humans found a way to dominate landscapes, to step into a future no other species could touch. Fire was not just about cooking, it was about becoming something more. With cooked food came strength, with strength came vision, and with vision came destiny. But destiny always comes with a price. And there is one more truth about fire's role in shaping the human diet that I will only reveal later. A truth that links flames not just to survival, but to power, control, and even violence. Stay with me, because that revelation will turn the story of early eating habits into something far more complex than mere survival. If fire gave early humans the power to transform food, then the hunt gave them the power to control its source, and here lies a turning point where desperation began to evolve into dominance. Long before agriculture and domestication, the act of the hunt was not a luxury. It was a gamble of life against death, a ritual of courage, cooperation, and blood. Picture the scene. Not a lone hero with a spear, but trembling groups, barefoot and weapon-poor, stalking animals that towered over them. The earliest hunters were not predators by default. They were weak in speed, poor in strength, and fragile in body compared to the beasts they chased. Yet they had something no other creature could match: persistence, intelligence, and unity. Through persistence hunting, early humans learned to chase antelopes, zebras, and even larger beasts across endless plains, not by sprinting, but by outlasting. They ran for hours under the blistering sun, pushing prey to collapse from exhaustion, claiming meat not by teeth or claws, but by endurance. But here is where suspense sharpens. The kill was never guaranteed, and sometimes the hunters themselves became hunted, their scent carried on the wind, their sweat drawing predators closer. And in those moments of fear, hunger burned hotter than fire. The taste of the first fresh kill must have been more than food. It must have been power, a taste of something no other species dared to control. Roasted over flames shared among the group, it was nourishment, but also a symbol. Meat was not just protein, it was prestige, status, and survival wrapped in one. But I must hold back a detail for now, because the true hierarchy of who got to eat what, who claimed the fat, who chewed the marrow, who gnawed the bones, that's a revelation we'll explore later, and it will tell you much about the roots of human society. For now, let us stay with the chase. Hunting expanded human diets far beyond insects, roots, and berries. It brought organs rich in vitamins, blood thick with iron, fat that fueled brains and muscles. It gave them hides for warmth, bones for tools, tendons for bindings. Nothing was wasted, because nothing could be wasted. Yet the hunt also scarred them. Spears missed, prey fought back, stampedes crushed, wounds festered. Every hunt was victory or tragedy, a dance on the edge of extinction. And here lies another hidden truth. Humans did not always hunt alone. Sometimes they followed predators, watching lions bring down wildebeests, waiting for the right moment to drive them away with stones and noise, stealing meat from the very jaws of beasts. This was the true reality of survival. Not noble hunters of myth, but opportunists of the wild, clever thieves who turned desperation into triumph. And yet, as centuries passed, the hunt became ritualized, ingrained not just in the body, but in the mind. Around campfires, stories of the hunt were told, victories remembered, failures etched into memory. Through hunting, humans learned to strategize, to plan, to share. And with every kill, they carved a new place in the food chain, rising from scavengers to hunters, from prey to predators. But here is the twist that I must leave hanging. The greatest hunts of early humans were not for animals at all, but for something far more elusive, something tied to migration, to exploration, to the birth of culture itself. That secret will come soon. For now, let us end here, in the dust and sweat of the savannah, in the pounding heartbeat of the chase, in the trembling grip of a spear about to strike. This was the age when food was not just survival, it was power, risk, and destiny, and the taste of power, once discovered, could never be forgotten. Stay tuned. Up until now, our ancestors lived at the mercy of the wild, chasing, gathering, and scavenging. But here begins another revolution. Quiet, slow, and almost invisible at first, the birth of agriculture, when humans began to bend the earth to their will, planting seeds that would forever change what survival meant. Before this, every meal was uncertain, every day a gamble against hunger. But with the discovery that plants could be tamed, grown, and harvested, humanity's relationship with food was rewritten. No longer did they only take what nature offered, they began to shape nature itself. But do not think this was instant paradise, because the first farmers did not feast, they toiled. Early grains like barley and wheat were tough, fibrous, and bitter, demanding grinding and cooking to be edible. Yet, with fire and stone, these seeds became porridge, bread, and gruel, slow-burning energy that could feed not just one meal, but entire communities. This was the dawn of surplus, the first time humans could store food, save for tomorrow, and survive winters without constant wandering. But here's the part I must tease. You might think agriculture made life easier, but evidence suggests the opposite, at least in the beginning. Farmers were smaller, weaker, and sicker than the hunters they replaced. Their diets, now heavy with grains, lacked the diversity of wild foods, leading to fragile bones, cavities, and malnutrition. So why did they persist? Because the seed carried not just calories, but power. With farming came villages, with villages came walls, with walls came ownership, and with ownership came the birth of civilization. The very first cities rose not from meat, but from fields of grain. And yet, here lies a darker truth. Farming locked humanity into cycles of labor, hierarchy, and conflict. Whoever controlled the harvest controlled life itself. Food became more than survival. It became wealth, control, and even a weapon. Grain could feed armies or starve enemies. Livestock, once wild prey, became property, milked, herded, bred for slaughter. The bond between humans and animals shifted from predator-prey to master-servant, but even here, shadows lurked. Diseases crossed from animals to humans, famine struck when crops failed, and dependence on farming tied humans to the land like chains. And yet, despite all this, agriculture endured, because it offered something the wild never did: certainty, or at least the illusion of it. But let me hold back one more revelation. There was a hidden cost to this new way of eating, a cost so profound that it still echoes in our bodies today, shaping our health, our cravings, and even our diseases. That truth I will reveal later. For now, know this. When humans planted their first seeds, they planted more than crops. They planted the future, for better or worse. And the soil that once offered bitter roots and tubers now yielded bread, beer, and abundance. Yet with abundance came imbalance, with settlement came war, and with surplus came greed. This was no longer the feast of the wild, no longer the chase of the hunt. This was the age when food became civilization itself, and with it, the beginning of everything we call human progress, and everything we call human struggle. Stay with me, because the next chapter uncovers a truth even more unsettling, one tied not to plants or animals, but to humanity's own hunger for survival at any cost. From roots clawed out of barren soil to the first roasted marrow, from insects and bitter tubers to the controlled flames of fire, from the perilous chase of the hunt to the sowing of the first seeds. The story of what early humans ate is not just about food. It is about survival, transformation, and the very making of us. Every bite they took was a gamble, every choice a lesson written into our bodies across generations. Insects may have sustained them when the savannah was dry. Honey may have sweetened their brief triumphs. Roasted flesh may have fueled their brains, and grains may have built their cities. But behind each of these meals lay the same unbreakable truth. Hunger was the greatest teacher of all. It drove them to risk, to innovate, to dream, and to dominate. And here is the final revelation. What early humans ate was never about taste or comfort. It was about adaptation, about bending to the merciless will of nature, and in time, bending nature itself. That is why today, though we sit at tables overflowing with abundance, our cravings, our bodies, even our diseases still whisper of that ancient diet, of marrow sucked from bones, of fire-crackled fat, of bitter roots and sweet honey. The story of food is the story of us, our fears, our triumphs, our evolution. And if you look closely at every meal you eat today, hidden in its flavors and textures, you will find echoes of those who came before, who starved, who fought, who feasted, and who endured. Because in the end, survival was never guaranteed, but hunger made sure that humanity never stopped trying. And that is what early humans really ate to stay alive.